Marcy, Skylight, Gray, Cliff, and Redfield done. Now the long walk back to the lodge. 3:55 a.m., just signed in. Santanoni Range, let's go. The wind is whipping here in the Seward Range today. Just finished the Macomb slide and my legs are on fire. Well, I fell victim to the floating logs again. Made it to the top of East Dix. Peak number 3 of 5 for today here in the Dix Range. Avalanche Pass. On top of Rocky Peak Bridge. It's like a hurricane up here. Rain and wind here on Tabletop. Whiteface, number 6. Muddy day here on Street and Nye for number 7 and 8. Sunny and blue on Haystack. Algonquin, up in the clouds, number 18. Gothic's number 22. Panther, number 38. Allen, number 45. 7:12 a.m. Big Slide, Adirondack 46er. You're listening to the 46 of 46 podcast. January 29th, 2020. After yet again a few days of snowfall, the weather was clearing up for the next couple days, and I figured it was as good a time as any to get out on the trail. When it comes to winter hiking, I prefer bluebird days in the high peaks or snowstorms on smaller mountains that I frequently hike. I'm not really interested in being deep in the backcountry when it comes to the real deal storms, hence my staying on smaller, familiar little peaks during those times. But it was going to be another bluebird day, so getting out on the trail was a must. I was hiking again with some familiar faces, Jonathan Zaharek and Kira Schaefer, and last week we enjoyed a nice sunset hike on Phelps. Today, however, was going to be quite different from that hike. The agenda for this week's winter adventure was to be standing on top of the tallest mountain in New York State to catch the sunrise. Needless to say, it would require a little bit earlier than usual start time. Our plan to catch the sunrise on top of Mount Marcy would have us starting at 2:30 a.m. from the Adirondack Lodge. We'd be taking the Van Hovenberg Trail up Marcy to enjoy the sunrise first, and then continue over the backside of Marcy down to the Four Corners where we'd hike up Skylight next, followed by Gray Peak. Then down to Lake Colden and back out via the Lake Arnold Trail to Marcy Dam, and eventually out to the lodge. Marcy, Skylight, and Gray are the tallest, 4th tallest, and 7th tallest peaks in the Adirondacks, with Marcy being the highest point in the state of New York. Today's 19-mile trek with over 5,000 feet of elevation gain would begin with a 7-mile hike up Mount Marcy as we chase the sunrise, so time was of the essence. After getting maybe 60 minutes of quality sleep, my alarm clock went off at 1:30 a.m., and I shot up out of bed. I ate a bagel, and I was out the door. Wake up early for work, pure torture. Wake up early to go hiking, piece of cake, no problem. I pulled into Lot 1 of the Adirondack Lodge at 2:20 a.m. to a crowded parking lot filled with dozens and dozens of hikers getting ready to start their own winter adventures. Just kidding. There was absolutely nobody there at this hour. It was quiet as can be. It is 2:24. I'm here at the parking lot at the Adirondack Lodge. Not many cars here at 2:24 a.m. Pretty dark out. Planning to hike Marcy, Skylight, and Gray today with Jonathan Zaharek and Kira. A couple people I hiked Big Slide with recently. We're supposed to start at 2:30. Hopefully they get here any moment now. Should be a good day. The weather's going to be nice and clear eventually. Trying to get up to Marcy for sunrise. Pretty dark here right now. Pretty quiet. A few minutes later, Kira pulled in, and shortly after, Jonathan arrived. We all said our hellos. Kira and I busted on John for being late again, and we signed in at 2:45 a.m. It was a pleasant 18 degrees to start the day. Time to hit the trail. Today I was wearing my usual winter hiking uniform. Techwick base layers, top and bottom, EMS Techwick t-shirt, water-resistant North Face pants, gaiters, hat, and gloves. The trail once again was plenty packed down, so we all started with micro spikes on our feet as we made our way to Marcy Dam for the millionth time. Past the first wooden bridge, up, down, over, around, across a wooden bridge here, over a plank bridge there, cruising through the woods during the witching hour as the woods around us was dark, quiet, and eerily still. Just after 3:30, we're here at Marcy Dam, nice and quiet, nice and dark. Definitely the only people here. Water's flowing. Temperature's really nice too as well today. It's about 18 degrees, so it's quite comfortable to be hiking in Marcy Dam at this hour. Fantastic. We made it to Marcy Dam and crossed over the frozen, snow-covered river, coming out directly in front of the Marcy Dam Trail Registry, saving a couple minutes this way. Having hiked a good portion of this same trail just a week prior, as well as a couple months ago, I was quite familiar with it. We were over the dam and heading up the broken-out Van Hovenberg Trail towards the Phelps Trail Junction, which in my mind is the second checkpoint of the day, with the first being Marcy Dam. Like last week, we opted for the low water crossing again today, which was frozen enough, and we carried on up the trail via the light from our 3 headlamps. Of course, Jonathan's headlamp was more like a stadium spotlight, lighting up half the mountain, so that was actually quite nice. We quickly made it along the Phelps Brook to the Phelps Trail Split. We said our hello to that majestic peak, contemplated for a few seconds. Maybe we should also hike Phelps again. I mean, it's only a mile up and we're right here, right now. It's pretty early. We didn't, of course, but it's hard not to consider any time you're at the trail split for a mountain and it's only a mile or less. John threw his snowshoes on here at the Phelps Trail Junction, and Kira and I opted to remain in spikes for a little while longer. But turns out a while longer would only be maybe a quarter of a mile, as the snow started getting fluffier sooner than anticipated, and it was time for the snowshoes. I recently bought a new pair of snowshoes, and today was the first time I was getting to use them out on the trail. On the recommendation of my buddy Eli Carlton, I picked up a pair of the Tubbs VRT Flex snowshoes, and they were a total game changer. Specifically because they have a heel lift, as my old Tubbs snowshoes that I've had for years didn't have one. So I'm quite happy with them if you're in the market for snowshoes. They're the Tubbs VRT Flex snowshoes. So we shoot up and carried on hiking up the trail, soon making our way to the Tabletop Trail Split. Only 0.7 miles to that summit. Maybe we should just quickly go up this one. It's even shorter than Phelps. But once again, no. On towards Marcy. From this trail split, it's basically another 3 miles to the summit and 1,700 feet of elevation to gain, so there's still a lot of work to be done. Just up the trail from Tabletop, maybe 0.1 or 0.2 miles, is Indian Falls, which tonight was covered in nice fresh snow. We didn't stop and we just kept climbing. Throughout the hike, we were taking turns leading. We weren't breaking trails so much on the climb up Marcy, but that's just how it went, taking turns. And that would be a theme throughout the day. People often say, "Oh, Marcy, yeah, it's an easy hike. It's long, but it's a very gradual climb, so it's super easy." That statement, while potentially and objectively true, it's still a long hike with plenty of miles and plenty of work to be done. With the gradual nature, however, we found ourselves constantly pulling the heel lift on our shoes up and down, Because yes, there are climbs, and then there's flatter, easier stretches, and then climbing, and then gradual. So with my new snowshoes, I got pretty quick with pulling the heel lift up and down in the blink of an eye, so that was fun. We stopped on occasion and fueled up with a snack and a swig wherever we needed. We're making our way up the Van Hovenberg Trail towards the summit of Marcy. Nice and dark. Trail's pretty broken out nicely. There's a little bit of fresh snow on top, but we're taking turns leading and breaking out the rest of the trail. But for the most part, it's pretty much broken out, which is great. We've passed the Phelps Trail Split, the Tabletop Trail Split, past Indian Falls, continuing up the trail, trying to get to the summit by sunrise so we don't miss out on that spectacular show that the Adirondacks will put on tonight. We're almost at the trail split to go over to Haystack, so we're making some good progress right now. Onward, chasing the sunrise. We were making okay time, right on schedule to be at the summit in time for sunrise. Passing the trail split over to Haystack, which had not been traveled for a while and wasn't broken out. Past the various plateaus, and then we came out to the edge of the tree line at the Alpine Zone sign. And in the blink of an eye, we could hear and feel the wind that was awaiting us just a mere footsteps away from the tree cover we've experienced the whole hike thus far. At this point, we stopped and layered up for the final push to the summit. I added a mid-layer and then some wind protection, opting to save my puffy coat for the summit for that extra layer at the top, even though it was plenty cold. So we started the final push, and upon turning around, we could see the bright amber glow rising from behind the Dix Range. The sun was on its way. Once leaving the tree line and climbing the last section of the trail to Marcy, it felt like we were in another world. The tiny snow-covered trees, the hard rime ice covering the ground everywhere along with the crunchy hard snow. The way the light was starting to shine but still dark in the valleys along the ridge was very pleasing. It definitely felt like we were on another planet altogether.
We're making our way up towards the top of Marcy right now. We are above the trees. The wind is whipping. It's absolutely incredible. We're above the clouds. The sun is coming up. Fantastic.
We followed the one set of tracks from yesterday, which we saw in the sign-in register that one person went up Marcy the previous day, and we followed their tracks up and over the rocks towards the summit, passing the snow-covered cairns that just looked like giant snow blobs, crunching our way up as the 20 to 30 mile per hour winds ripped past us. The clear sky behind us was filled with the mountain silhouette with the orange, red, and yellow glow lighting up the sky from behind. It really was an unbelievable experience being up here, on this mountain in particular, in the winter, on a clear day as the sun is rising. Easily one of the greatest moments of my hiking career thus far. The three of us carried on towards the summit, fighting against the wind, and soon we saw the summit plaque in the rock about 30 yards ahead of us. We made it. The official sunrise was scheduled to be 7:16 a.m., and we made it to the summit just after 7 o'clock. An unbelievable view that even looking at it with your own eyes, it doesn't feel real. Then 16 minutes later, as the three of us stood at the summit, Nalgene's in hand, taking it all in, the sun showed itself, rising directly behind the Dix Range and Huff in particular, and then within seconds it went from being behind the mountains to being fully visible, rising up into the sky. Watching the sunrise on a clear winter day, standing on top of Mount Marcy, is a moment most people, even most Adirondack hikers, will never experience. And I feel extremely fortunate that I had the opportunity to stand here on this summit and watch the sun reveal itself before my very eyes. The sun was up. The three of us were the only people standing on top of Mount Marcy in New York State, the highest point in the state, 5,344 feet up in the cold, windy, clear Adirondack sky. So we made it to the top of Marcy just before the sun rose, which was pretty spectacular watching the sun rise. Nice and cold up here. We're above the clouds. Yeah, pretty spectacular. We were there. On top of the fact that we made it for sunrise and it was a clear day as we looked to the east and watched the orange sun rising, what was happening to the west of us was arguably just as amazing. The mountains to the west, the McIntyre Range, Colden, Whiteface, and many more were experiencing an incredible cloud inversion. So here we are also standing above the clouds. The summit of Whiteface was poking through the clouds in the distance in an unbelievable way. So we're here on Marcy with the sun rising over the Dix Range to the east, with the sky completely clear over here, and then to the west was a cloud inversion as fluffy clouds engulfed the bottom half of the high peaks. Oh, and then there's that golden shine on all the rime ice and snow around us. Man, what a time to be alive. By the time we got to the summit, I was more than ready to eat something of substance. So I enjoyed one of my 3 sandwiches. Because as I always say, 1 sandwich per peak. 3 peaks? Oh, I'll bring 3 sandwiches today. It was a turkey sandwich. I also enjoyed a bag of peanut butter M&Ms and a Snickers bar, and a bunch of Noon water. Wonderful. Well, it would have been wonderful if I wasn't eating this food in the middle of 25-mile-an-hour winds and single-digit temperatures, but it could have been much worse. At least there were no bugs. The sun was shining very pleasantly over on Mount Skylight, our next stop, so we decided to continue on with our morning after spending a good 30 minutes on Marcy taking it all in. Kira and I were a little bit concerned that going down the backside of Marcy was going to be quite icy, but it really wasn't at all. There was once again a single set of snowshoe tracks that we followed as we went from cairn to cairn, down this crunchy but somewhat powdery trail. It was fast and easy down today as we descended about 600 feet elevation in just under half a mile on our way to Schofield Cobble, which is a little mountain between Marcy and Skylight. And then once over Schofield Cobble, we were back in the woods and away from the wind on this narrow, powdery trail in the trees. Making our way down the backside of Marcy right now, on our way over to Skylight, which is right in front of us. Lots of nice, deep, powdery snow right now as we continue down Marcy. The first half of